Hey everyone, Tony again here. Decided to do another video today, this time focusing on Tesla. Chose Tesla because honestly, I mean, everybody talks about it, so why not? So decided to just dive in, have a little fun. At least it's fun for me, so okay, I could do this all day. So looking at the monthly here, there's let me see here. Obviously, we're on this crazy bull run, this little uptrend that we have here. We have, let's see, there's this nice support level around here. I would say right there. And then there's a higher one around this. There's a couple candle closes and oops, pressing the wrong thing. Around there, let's say. Oops, I don't know why it does that. Anyways, right around there, it's pretty decent. I mean, these horizontal support and resistance levels, I mean, they're just that. They're zones, they're levels. You know, it's not an exact number. It's not going to hit exactly 361. It's not going to hit exactly 175 and 76 cents. Could be a little bit more, a little bit less. But I think in general, you're looking at 5% up, above or below. So that gives us like a general idea of, you know, like a recent support and resistance. You could also call this level here maybe 279, 78, 280 basically. You can call that, I guess, maybe 260, between those two price points. But I guess what everybody wants to know is, are we going higher? Are we going lower? Well, it's going to happen. So I guess let's take a look. So if we do some fib extensions off of this, basically the low to that little high there. Wow, it actually hit it on the nose. It went a little bit above it, but it went almost to the 4.618, which is an insane extension. That shows you, I mean, from $177, give or take, to 588. I mean, that's no joke. In a period of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 months, it's crazy. I mean, that's crypto talk. Um, so is it going to continue? I mean, who knows? I mean, it depends how many people are getting into it. There's a lot of volume. There's definitely more volume than there was before. So I usually worry if there's these higher candles, you know, uptrends with weakening volume. That usually kind of, you know, it's a deterrent. But so far so good. The RSI looks powerful. It basically made market structures in the bullish zone. It's not overbought yet on the monthly. Same thing with the stochastic. It hasn't crossed over. It's basically it's getting now on a monthly to overbought regions, but not there yet. So there might be some more and volume is coming in on the OBV here. There might be some upside to go. So let's go into the the weeklies. So in the weeklies, you see that there's a let's try putting another fib up here. Let's maybe go from this to this high here. So hit basically the 2618 on the nose again. It's funny how these things work. You just keep doing it and more and more, just more and more coincidence. So there could be more of an extension, but at this point on the weekly, we're getting signs of overbought. We got overbought here, where I mean, this must be like 80 on the RSI, 85 on the RSI. So it's definitely, yeah, it's definitely high on the RSI. The volume has dropped last week a little bit. It's let me see here. Stochastic still hasn't crossed over. Usually what I look for in the stochastic is for not only the crossover of the RSI of the EMA, or the K and the D, I should say, with stochastic, but for it to actually cross over below the 80 mark on my chart. Usually I have my stochastic and my RSI over bod region 80 and above. Usually for the RSI it's 70 and above. Yeah, I like to make it a little bit more dramatic and have it at 80 and above. especially if the EMA on the RSI hits that. I mean, it's just a crazy kind of thing, which it's actually very, very close. At that 76, I would say. Um, so the levels are there for a pullback, I would say. So let's say that there is a pullback. Where would we most likely go on a weekly chart? Let's see. So let's delete this here. Actually, so where would we most likely pull back to? So there's two ways to do it. You can do it to this recent high here. Let's take this sucker out of the way. Let's change this back to here. And the first pullback, I would say something healthy would be down to between 505 and 450. Most likely the $450 level. That makes a lot of sense. It just for an uptrend to be healthy, you need a small pullback. I mean, if we look at this pullback over here, actually, I'm sorry. Let's go back to this pullback here. So this pullback went down to the 61.8, which is also very common. Usually that's where people kind of they buy back. The bigger players, they know how to sell and buy, so they'll usually be buying back if they believe the market is strong. They'll usually buy it between the 61.8 and the 78.6. So that's exactly what happened there. Then you had a nice little run up to, I guess, you had this here. It pulled back. Did it pull back all the way to 61.8 here? It did. Wow, this little mini trend here, I mean range here, went back down to 78.6, so somebody bought in there. Usually I don't like to play with the, well, we're on the weekly, so we're looking more big picture. But long story short, even if we're looking at this possible ultimate high, we're not sure. I mean, anything could happen. But if we're looking at a pullback from the bottom to that top, we're looking at a healthy pullback between 495 and 435. That seems very possible. Now, something to keep in mind, the 50 EMA and the 200 EMA are both within the 61.8 and the 78.6, which are prime levels for those pullbacks like I showed you here. See how the price basically came back and touched that 61.8? So something like that could very well likely happen. It wouldn't mean it's the end of the world. It would just mean it's a correction. It would hit those EMAs that would act like support and then bounce off of that if it is in fact a healthy bull market. It might even go as low as touching the 200 EMA on the weekly. Very likely could happen. There's nothing too crazy. Now, if it breaks below both of those EMAs and breaks below the 78.6, then there could be a little bit of a freak out happening, and it could go as low. Well, I guess the next stop would be, in my opinion, it would be the 250 region. And if it breaks that, then I don't see why it wouldn't go back down to this horizontal trend line at the 176 mark, 175, 177. I mean, it's crazy to see an extension like this. It's crazy. But that's very likely what's going to happen. There might be a pullback at the very least between 236 and 382, but a more likely pullback would be somewhere between this region here, between the 61.8 and the 78.6. So there's a lot of confluence here. We have this actual level here in the Fibonacci, that little sweet spot. We have the RSI being overbought, I should say. That doesn't usually mean, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's overbought and everybody's actually going crazy and just nonstop, but it's a sign that it may be time for a pullback. As long as we're above this 50 line, it's bullish, especially above the 60 mark, 65 mark. It's definitely bullish. If we can kind of oscillate between, where we are now and there, we should be fine. The stochastic is a little bit of a warning sign too, in that it's it's flirting, going back and forth between, yeah, it's just crossing back and forth. So if we kind of draw a trend line here, which we can real quick, we can see on the weekly that, but it's such a steep trend line that it's kind of hard to believe that it's true. But yeah, I mean, it's, so right now it broke past it. I think that it only makes sense for there to be a small pullback, at the very least a small pullback, a correction, let's say. And let's bring this back. So that's on the weekly. Let's dive into the daily to see what's going on there. I expect it to be a little more dramatic, and sure enough. So on the daily, we have some RSI divergence, which I assumed. I think we might have even had some on the weekly, perhaps. No. Well, we had one here, a small divergence there, which probably corresponded to this correction here. And then it just shot up. And ever since, no divergence on the weekly at least. But when we go down to the daily, that's where you see a little bit more, it's more obvious there's divergence here. So you have these peaks, you know, higher high, higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, higher lows, higher highs on the price. But on the RSI, we have basically the same levels. Let's try to zoom in on this one. So we have a higher high here, but then we have a lower high here. So now this is where it gets a little bit interesting. So that's basically what we're looking at on a daily. So let's go back. And you can see that the price, so basically the RSI is giving us lower RSI, lower highs, but we're getting higher highs in price. It just means normally that it's due for a correction. Again, I think the first stop, especially if you look at the daily, I mean, here it's super obvious where the 50 EMA is basically touching 38.2. I mean, that's confluence right there. Also on the stochastic, we can see that it's basically, it just crossed. I mean, we may need another day for it to confirm here, but we have an obvious downtrend in the RSI. Even if we continue this crazy trend line here, it broke past, it's just basically breaking down here. So I think we need to, they're just, it's overdue for a correction. Let me fix this again. So that's on the daily. Oh boy, keep messing that one up, huh? There we go. So I see at the very least a correction down to the 38.2, which would be a price target of $435. This is not financial advice. This is just what I am seeing. Doesn't mean anything. Again, fundamentals, any news trumps technical analysis. This is just, in general, what I believe, you know, probabilities and statistically what should happen. But hey, you never know. I mean, things having, the stock market is very interesting. So I can see a price target of 435 somewhere. I mean, there's no real date for this, but on the daily, I would say something healthy would be in a couple weeks. Unless there's some fundamental, something fundamental that might drive it faster, or let's say they have some crazy news that they made a deal for their electric motors with Ford and everybody in the motor industry, and then that would drive the price even more. But statistically speaking, it looks like it's ready for a pullback. This might have been, this little doji might have been like the little trigger, the little kind of like a little foreshadow of what was going to happen. So we'll see. Right now, I would say if I had to put money on it, that I would see it going down to at least the 382. So I'm not taking this trade, and you should definitely not take this trade, especially if you don't know what you're doing. Consult financial advisors, financial planners, anybody. Do your own research, your own due diligence. This is not, I'm just laying it out there. But if it were me, I would do risk a small amount on your stop loss, and then have a nice target of a 435, give or take. You can be a little more, aggressive or conservative here. It's really up to you how you feel. You could even change this to be if you want to do extensions as your stop loss, you can actually change this up to here, and then go just above the 113. Usually the 1.13 is a kind of like a fake out level. Not always, but it happens sometimes. So let's say you put it there, you still have a decent target of a 2.36 risk reward, going all the way down to that level, the 38.2, hitting the 435 range. So I think it makes sense for this to happen. Doesn't guarantee anything. There are no guarantees here, like I've said. It's just probability. This looks like there's a good shot that this may happen. The only other thing that I might consider is the volume profile, just to see if we have some extra confirmation there. It's pointing lower here, so 238 could happen, I guess, if we change these back to, there we go. It would be below the 78.6. Who knows? I would disregard this for now, keep it simple, and I would say that would be my best guess at what is going to happen here. But I guess, again, that's exactly what it is. Nobody can tell you what's going to happen with certainty. It's just this is our best guess, or my best guess at least. So yeah, that's basically it. Wanted to put something out there. Hopefully you guys can take some value out of this. If you like it, like the video. If you like to subscribe, please subscribe. And let me know any feedback, anything else you'd like to talk about, any other, whether it's indicators, whether it's assets, any stocks, anything you want to talk about, just let me know. If you guys want to talk about more of trading in general, if you guys want to talk about stop losses or targets or whatnot, just let me know. Post a comment, send me a message, whatever is easier. Follow me on Twitter if you'd like, at Tony Carrera. And thanks a lot for tuning in. Thanks, guys.